All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to today's mini class. This is Killian, and I am your presenter for today. And today is going to be the first mini class of our Power User series, where we cover more advanced topics and workflows in Mac practice. This series is meant to be the logical successor to our New Year, New User series, and it builds off many of the topics discussed in that series. And today we're going to be talking about transparencies. So before we hop in, I will point out that in generation 11 of Mac Practice, we did revamp transparencies. So if you are on an older build of Mac Practice, things are going to look a bit different on your end, but the tips and tricks presented will generally be applicable to the Mac Practice build that your office has. However, I do highly recommend that your office updates your Mac Practice if possible. If you put in a ticket with support, a representative will be more than happy to provide assistance and information regarding the update process. So many of you are likely familiar with transparencies, but just to recap, transparencies are used to block off certain times or days on the calendar to prevent an appointment from being scheduled or to inform the staff of important information. Transparencies are going to be how you block off lunches, meetings, holidays, and other various events in Mac practice. So basically, if it needs to be shown on your schedule and it's not a patient appointment, then it will be a transparency. So before we walk through how to actually create transparency blocks, let's first talk about transparency types. So I will click on my transparency type folder here. So transparency types are typically intended to be like a broad description. I say this because if you have a transparency type for every single specific event that your office needs to block off, this is going to create a lot of clutter over time. So instead, I have just a select few transparency types here. So I have, for example, I have a meeting transparency type. I have one for all of our lunches. I have a couple for, for holidays. I have one for like out of office, one for our vacation, and then I have another one that's just an other transparency type to consolidate any other transparencies that don't really fall under those other types that I have. I have these broad because if I need to further specify what the transparency block is, I can enter that into the transparency block name or even into the notes of that transparency block. So I do have options to further customize this transparency type. I will always recommend to offices to utilize the option to color code your transparency blocks. Personally, I'm big when it comes to visual cues, so this is a great way for me to fully maximize the usage of my schedule. So currently, I have it set up so that if anyone, I or anyone in my office sees a transparency block that is in the color blue here, we will all know that it is going to be a meeting of some sort. If you click on the color associated with that transparency type, it is going to pop up the Mac OS color selector here, and you do have the options of like the colored pencils, or you can go into the color wheel here, and you can select whatever colors work best for your office when you're setting up those transparency types. I do have options to further customize this transparency type. So here we have the rules tab. Here you can set up any rules for this block that would apply. You can confirm, and you have a few different checkboxes, I should say. First one here is going to be confirm appointment scheduling. This right here is going to create an alert anytime that you attempt to schedule an appointment over a transparency block that is of this type. So basically what will happen is if I have this checked and I go to schedule an appointment there, I'm going to get a pop-up that says, hey, are you sure? Just confirming, do you want to schedule this appointment over this transparency block? Furthermore, you do have the option here to just do not schedule appointments at all. This is pretty self-explanatory. It just simply won't allow you to schedule an appointment over any transparency block of this type. You also do have the option here for to allow selected procedures. I really don't recommend using the allow selected procedures rule unless your office ties treatment plans to your appointments, which is something that we will be covering in our treatment planning mini class. This basically will only allow an appointment to be scheduled if said appointment is tied to a treatment plan with select codes. And those select codes that would be allowed can be chosen over here. So if you go over to the green plus button right here, you are going to get a drop-down window that's going to show all of the procedures across all of your fee schedules. So often offices are going to have multiple fee schedules. Sometimes they'll have them for different insurance companies. They may have them for different providers, for example, or different years even, they might have a fee schedule that is of a discounted rate. So you're going to have maybe multiple iterations of the same code. So let's say if I'm obviously we're in the meeting transparency type. Let's say if I was doing this and I wanted only to see patients under a specific code, like if I did D120, for example, if I want to make sure that I'm covering all of my bases so that any instance of this code can be allowed to schedule there, I will want to click and then drag across all of these codes here and then hit the OK, and then it will pull in all of those instances of that code regardless of fee schedule. All right, and I did get a question here regarding whether you can delete transparency types. Yes, you can delete transparency types. So what you would do in that case is you would select or highlight the specific transparency type. You would select that, and then you would press, I'll go ahead and save that. You will go ahead and then press the red minus button up in the sidebar. What you do is once you press that minus button, you will get, depending on if you have existing transparency blocks within this transparency type, you will get this message that says it's unable to delete it. That is because it'll give you the option to basically you have to reassign any existing blocks within this transparency type to another transparency type. So what you can do is if you select change and delete, it will then give you a list of your other transparency types, and you can move all of your transparency blocks from this type over to a different type and reassign them. All right, so moving on here, we do have a couple other tabs within this transparency type reference here. You do have the all blocks tab. This is going to show basically all instances of usage of this transparency block, and it's going to give you obviously the name, it'll give you the timings of those, what resources those are under, if it repeats at all, and then any further description as well. You also do have the history tab here as well, and this is really just going to show any instances of usage of this transparency type, kind of similar to the history report. It's going to show the date which this action right here was completed, and then whichever user was logged in that had done such action. So basically, you can consider the all blocks and the history tabs to kind of be like your references or your reports for your transparency types. All right, so now that we've kind of gone over the transparency types, let's actually go into how to create a transparency block. So similar to when you're going to schedule an appointment and you want to make sure you're on the appointments folder in the sidebar, that same concept applies when you're wanting to create a transparency block. You'll want to make sure you are highlighted on that transparency blocks folder in the sidebar. So let's say for this example that we're going to be scheduling a one-time meeting for one of the providers in my office, and they'll be attending that tomorrow morning from 7:30 to 8. And it's just going to be a one-time thing. So first, obviously, I'm going to want to navigate to tomorrow. I'm a little bit out in December, so let me move back. I'll click today, and we'll go to Thursday. So let's say here that, let's say that's actually from 8 to 8:30. So let's say that Dr. Purdue has that meeting from 8 to 8:30. Similar to when you are scheduling an appointment, you will just click and drag on the desired time and resource. And then, whoops, see, I made a bit of a mistake there. Make sure that you are selected on that transparency blocks folder there. We'll go ahead and drag down, and you will get a small window that will populate that allows you to enter various information regarding this transparency block. So this is going to be a meeting, so we're going to obviously want to go in here and choose meeting for our type. However, if you don't see a transparency type that makes sense, or if you find, maybe you're having a new event or type of thing going on in the office that may necessitate a new type, you do have the option to add a new type on the fly here. So you can click new type, you can enter that type and even assign the color right here if you would like to. We'll just keep it as is. And then here I will have the option in the block name to further specify exactly what this meeting is. So let's say that Dr. Purdue is just maybe meeting up with some people regarding marketing. We're trying to market out to our patients more and try to get our name out there a bit more, do some brand awareness. So maybe I'll just title this marketing meeting, for example. Down here, so similar to when you're scheduling appointments and how it can be pretty forgiving as far as moving appointments around and putting them in the right spot. Same concept for transparency blocks. So if you find yourself that maybe when you did the click and drag method, you put it maybe in the wrong resource column, you can always go in here and you can switch that to the proper resource in here. You also do have the option to select all resources if all providers or everyone that's on the schedule will be in attendance for this or will be occupied. And then again, you do have the option here to also manually edit the time here as well. And you also do have an all day checkbox, so you don't have to click and drag across the entirety of the schedule when creating one. So if you do have like an all day transparency type, you can just come in here and click that. This transparency won't be repeating since this is a one-time thing, but I also do have the option to enter more information in this notes field. So again, this can be used to at your office's discretion. You may not find instances where you need to really put that much information, or maybe you want to be very detailed. It's entirely up to your office how you want to utilize that. So let's just say for my circumstance here that I'm just going to put the room is located. So we'll just say it's in like room 110, for example. So I can, once I'm done with that, I verified all my information looks good. I can click save, and you will see here, one, that it is in blue. So now I know visually when I or my front desk or whoever is looking at this can see that it is a meeting, obviously, but then they can read into it more. They can say, okay, well, Dr. Purdue is in a marketing meeting from 8 to 8:30, and it's going to be in room 10. So if I do need to get a hold of Dr. Purdue for whatever reason during that time, I know where they are at. And this can really help with streamlining the office and making sure that everything is very organized and everyone knows what everyone is doing. So this is, again, I think transparency is a really great way to make your daily workflows more efficient. Now, if I need to delete this meeting, this transparency block, that's pretty simple. If I just right click on the transparency block, I can go to delete, and I will get this pop-up, just wanted to confirm, do I want to permanently delete this? I will go ahead and select delete. And now that is off of my schedule. All right, so let's go ahead and try to create another transparency block, and let's do this actually for our staff meetings. So let's say that these staff meetings are going to occur 4:30 to 5 every other Wednesday. So we do have the ability to create a repeating transparency in that nature. So it'll be kind of the same concept in the beginning. We'll just go onto the schedule, make sure we're on transparency blocks here, and we'll just click and drag the desired time. We'll just do 4:30 to 5. We'll go in here. We'll still have it set to the meeting type, so we'll keep that, and we'll maybe change this to staff meeting. And this is going to be a meeting that everyone will be in attendance for. So let's go ahead and let's do all resources. And down here again, you have the option to manually edit that time if need be. But we do want to go ahead and utilize this repeat field here. Since this is going to be something that's not in consecutive weeks, instead of using the every week repeating option, we're going to go to custom. And here we get another smaller pop-up window that is going to give us options to choose the frequency and then X amount of days, weeks, etc. that it happens on. So we're going to be doing this for weekly. We can go in here, and if we're doing this every other week, we'd want to set this to every 2 weeks. And you do have the option here to further select which weekday you want that to appear. It appears I'm still on Thursday, so I can actually go in here and set that just to Wednesday if I want, and then unselect Thursday. But if this was something that maybe every other week it happens on Wednesdays and Fridays, I could select the Friday option as well if need be. But I'll just leave it at Wednesdays. I'll go ahead and click save. And I don't really have any further notes to put into this, so I'll just go ahead and click save there. So on February 19th, on a Wednesday, you will see that I have this here. I have my staff meetings. And if I were to go 2 weeks ahead to say March 4th here, you will see that it will be there as well. But if I were to go back just 1 week, you will see, oops, you will see those meetings are not there. One thing I will point out really quick is that you will see with this specific transparency blocks that we made, there is going to be these three small like overlapping squares. This icon is intended to indicate that these are, or this is a repeating transparency. So this is not like a one-time event. This is something that is repeating for quite some time. So that is something to keep in mind as well if you're looking at these transparency blocks. If I need to delete this transparency, so let's say that just for today that the meeting got canceled, something popped up, so we can't really make it, I can just again right click and then go to delete. I'm going to get a bit of a different pop-up here though. So Mac Practice is going to ask and make sure, since this is a repeating transparency block and this has multiple occasions, are you going to want to just delete the selected block for today, or are you trying to delete all blocks for the entirety? So obviously we're not disbanding staff meetings, so we're just going to delete the selected block just to get rid of the ones from today. So as you can see, they've been deleted off the schedule for today, but if I go fast forward 2 weeks on that Wednesday, you'll see that they're still there. All right, so now let's go ahead and try another example. Let's say that, we've come to the decision that we want to set holiday hours for the month of December this year. So instead of being open from 8 to 5 like I have in my office hours of operation, I'm actually going to set our office hours from 8 to 4 during the month of December. So what I will do here, obviously I want to navigate to December, and I'll go ahead and utilize this month tab down here to move all the way over real quick. And then I will want to make sure if I'm doing this from the 1st of December to the end of December, I want to make sure that I am creating this transparency type on the 1st of December. So in this case, what I would do is I'll go ahead and click and drag from 4 to 5. We'll get that pop up again. And this isn't going to be a meeting, and this might be an instance where maybe I'd want to make a new one because we have our like pre-downloaded Mac practice holidays and we have the national holidays. Maybe I want a separate one just for holiday hours, just so I can distinguish that. So maybe I'll go ahead and just add a new type here, and I'll just go ahead and call this holiday hours. And we can go ahead and choose whichever color we'd like. Let's go ahead and just set this. We'll set this to yellow. And I have the option again to further, name this if need be. I think just calling it holiday hours works just fine for this, so that's okay. This is going to be across the office, so this will be applicable to all resources. And I can put any notes in here if I need to. But here we're going to go to repeats, and this is going to be something that goes on every day. So we're going to go ahead and select every day. Once I do that, I do get the option to basically choose when this repeat ends. So if I click on this, I can choose to end this after a specific date or on a specific date. So in this case, I could choose maybe if I want this to end on a specific date, I can maybe have this end right here on the 31st. So basically on the 31st, that is when the last time this transparency block will be shown on the schedule. So if I go ahead and click save, so if I navigate to other days within the month in here, you will see that that holiday hours transparency block is still visible regardless of where I go. But if I were to go to say like January 1st, for example, you will see that is not there. I do have my New Year's Day transparency block, but you will see that the transparency block for that holiday hours is not visible. If I were to move further into January, if I would go to like the 4th, for example, you will see it's not there. All right, and I had one last type of transparency block that I wanted to go over with you guys. And this example is a great alternative to that allowed selected procedures checkbox that we had discussed earlier, because that may not be a workflow that you can necessarily utilize. So if you aren't, I think this is a really great alternative and maybe a bit easier to implement for your office. So I'm thinking of examples of, often offices will have providers that during certain times of the day, they will only see certain patients or see certain types of appointments. So let's say that for this example, that one of my providers only is seeing walk-in appointments from 8 to 10 a.m. on all days. So what we would do is we would come into here, and again, we would highlight our transparency blocks folder, and then we would go ahead and click and drag from 8 to 10. Then we would go in here and choose our type. In this case, I'll probably just go ahead and set that to other. We'll go ahead and put that in there. And then in my block name, I could put, in all caps if you really want it to be bold, or put whatever you'd like. I'll just put walk-in appointments only. Go ahead and have my resources set there. We'll go ahead and have this repeat every day. And we'll just have that end never. And again, I can always come in here and edit this if need be, and I can change this from never ending to ending on a specific date. So don't be too afraid if you set this to never. There are ways to change that if that does end up changing. I could put any further notes if need be. I think this is sufficient, so I'll go ahead and hit save. And now I have that transparency block of walk-in appointments only. And then really quick, I'm going to navigate to our transparency types again. I'm going to check on that other transparency type because I want to make sure that under my rules that I can have appointments scheduled over there. However, I do have the option to confirm appointment scheduling. So now if we go into our appointments folder and try to actually schedule an appointment over that transparency, you will see here that I will get a message here, an alert that says, are you sure that you want to schedule that? And here it will tell me that the block is for walk-in appointments only. And it will tell us again, it has that rule set. So it's just asking us if we still want to continue. So this can serve as kind of a fail-safe. Basically, you can have that transparency shown and still show visually on the schedule that we're only allowing certain people or certain types of appointments, but you can still obviously schedule those appointments on there, and it will notify you when you are trying to schedule an appointment that, hey, this is only for walk-in appointments. So again, if I would like to do that, I can hit yes, and I can go in and schedule my appointment as need be. All right, and that is going to wrap up our Transparencies mini class.